When you're standing in a garage surrounded by a half-dozen different tools, it's easy to wonder if the next big purchase is really worth the space it will take. That hesitation is what I felt before I started looking at a 60-gallon vertical air compressor, especially from a brand that already dominates the power tool market. I wanted to know whether the DEWALT 60-gallon unit would actually make a difference on a typical weekend project schedule, or if I'd end up with a noisy, oversized tank that sits idle most of the year. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest question for most buyers isn't just how many PSI can it pump, but how does it fit into the workflow I already have. A 60-gallon tank is a serious jump from the 20 or 30-gallon units you see in many home shop setups. That extra volume means you can run a nail gun, a spray gun, and a tire inflator all in a row without the motor having to kick on and off constantly. In practice, that translates to less wear on the motor, lower electricity usage over a long day, and a smoother, more consistent pressure curve for tools that are sensitive to dips like paint sprayers. If you've ever watched your paint finish become streaky because the compressor hiccups every few seconds, you'll understand why that steadiness matters. The vertical design is another point that often gets glossed over in spec sheets. Because the tank stands upright, it occupies roughly half the footprint of a comparable horizontal model. In a cramped garage that already houses a workbench, a set of shelves, and a couple of power saws, that space-saving geometry can be the difference between a functional shop and a cluttered obstacle course. I measured the unit myself. The base is about 26 inches wide, and the overall height is just under 5 feet. That means you can slide it into a corner and still have room to walk around it, which is something many larger, horizontally oriented compressors don't allow. Now let's talk about the motor. The 3.7 HP electric drive is robust enough to bring the tank up to its maximum 155 psi in roughly 8 minutes from a cold start. That may sound fast, but the real benefit shows up after the first cycle. Once the tank is pressurized, the motor only has to maintain pressure, not constantly build it. For a typical weekend project, say, framing a deck, inflating a few tires, and using a pneumatic impact wrench, the compressor will spend most of its time idling at a low power draw. That keeps the electricity bill modest, which is a point often missed when people focus solely on horsepower numbers. One practical strength that's easy to overlook is the integrated oil-free pump. DEWALT designed this model with a sealed case motor that doesn't require routine oil changes. That eliminates a maintenance chore that can trip up even seasoned DI yaws. The downside, however, is that oil-free pumps generally run a little hotter than their oil-lubricated counterparts. In a hot garage during midsummer, you'll notice the motor warming up more quickly. The unit does have a built-in thermal overload protector, so it will shut down before any damage occurs, but you'll want to give it a few minutes of cool-down time between very long, continuous runs like inflating a fleet of truck tires. If you're wondering about noise, the vertical design again plays a role. The compressor's motor sits on the side of the tank rather than directly above it, which helps dampen the acoustic resonance that can make a horizontal tank sound like a jackhammer. In my experience, the noise level sits around 73 dB at full load. That's still louder than a standard household vacuum, but it's noticeably quieter than many older 60-gallon compressors that can push past 80 dB. For a typical garage, that means you can keep the unit running while you're on a phone call or watching a tutorial video without it becoming a full-blown distraction. Who should actually consider this machine? If you regularly run pneumatic tools that demand sustained pressure such as autobody sanders, framing nailers, or large-capacity spray rigs, a 60-gallon vertical compressor can be a genuine productivity boost. Small business owners who operate a mobile workshop, as well as hobbyists who maintain multiple vehicles, will appreciate the ability to keep a tire inflator, impact wrench, and air ratchet all fed from the same source without the compressor cycling on and off. The same logic applies if you've already outgrown a 20-gallon tank and find yourself waiting for pressure to rebuild after each task. On the flip side, if your air tool usage is limited to occasional nail gun work or inflating a few bike tires once a month, this unit is likely overkill. The upfront cost is higher than a 30-gallon model, and the physical footprint, while efficient for a vertical design, still demands a dedicated corner of the shop. For those who only need a portable solution, say, for a weekend camping trip or a quick fence repair, there are smaller, wheeled units that can be carried to the job site more easily. In those scenarios, the extra tank volume and stationary nature of the DEWALT 60-gallon become